Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy podcast. I am your director, Christian Buckley, joined as always by the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior, Christian. I'm removing my Guardians of the Galaxy t-shirt, let's say my metaphorical Guardians of the Galaxy t-shirt, throwing it across the room and replanting my my Marvel's Avengers shirt right on my body. Because, boy howdy, we got a lot to talk about this episode.
This is, like, genuinely, I don't know how long this episode's going to be, but this is the beefiest Marvel's Avengers week in so long. Like, normally, I feel like it's 50-50 on Marvel, Greater Marvel, and then Avengers. But now it's like 70-30, and that 30 is still a new episode of Loki, right? Like, it's a chunky one, and it feels so good. We got so much Avengers stuff to talk about. We got new skins, we got new content, we got future story teases, we got new roadmaps. It's a lot. So how are you feeling, Jack?
I'm feeling good because, for the most part, we'll talk about some not so good news that happened this past week. But
sure.
It is a mostly good news episode for Marvel's Avengers, which is always a good thing. Of course, this game cannot catch a break, and it certainly didn't this past week. But the future is, again, I'm one of these people where it's like sometimes I'm feeling bad, and then they do something right, and I'm like, oh, you got me. I'm back in. You got me back in. I'm hooked. I'm hooked on this thing. They're getting me back, so it's exciting. This is exciting for the future of this game.
Of course. So we'll get to everything, of course. So why don't we just kick off with the boring stuff, what you expect. Fury's report. This week, you want to get in the game. Low power level, Rocket's Red Glare, the cool Captain America space mission. High power level, Agents of Thunder, which I'm assuming is that Thor Norway quest line, one of those missions. The Horror Room Challenge will give you Captain America 1986, number 313. And there's a new event going on right now. So if you hop into the game, you can run some new modified missions in the Cosmic Threat. This is on the level of something like the Ruskaya protocols, where there are standard drop zones that you expect and could play anyways. They're just framed slightly differently for an event. It is tied to the new villain sector that dropped this week. We will touch on that, of course. But yeah, if you want to run through, get a cool animated nameplate and some tachyon exotics for your 120 plus level heroes, there's a brand new quest line in the game for you to do just that. I'm probably going to check this out. Jack, I don't know if you're planning on it or not, but I do enjoy the tachyon gear. I got a tachyon hammer on Thor, and it's very nice.
I'll definitely check it out. I was jumping into the game to take some screenshots of something we'll talk about, I'm sure, very soon. But I did notice those missions on the map, and I forgot they were coming alongside Monica's villain sector. So I'll definitely check them out. It's always good to have new content in the game, and this is one of those things. So yeah, I'll probably check it out.
Yeah, and the benefit of the tachyon gear is that it has like life drain. So when you deal damage, you take the enemy's life, and it will increase your willpower. So it could be helpful in some high-level content that we'll be getting into later this year.
Oh, Christian, I know, or at least I believe you're a big poison guy in RPGs.
Yes, love poison in Pokemon.
Sounds very similar to what we're getting here.
Yeah, I'm a regular old Zubat using leech life on these fools.
That's a good call.
Yeah. So yeah, that's everything for the standard run-of-the-mill content in the game right now. So Jack, what's up with this marketplace? You teased it. Victory, liberty, let it ring. Let it rain. We got a lot of stuff going on right now. It's a good day for this marketplace, kind of.
All right.
What's up?
Let's start with the questionable stuff, and then we'll get to the main event here. So I didn't see this until just starting recording this episode.
Yes.
Got hit with a new team outfit set. It is called the Neon Razer outfit. And imagine Crystal Dynamics developed a bunch of skins for the Avengers, and they took the colors purple in like lime/neon yellow and cranked the saturation. Exactly. Crank the saturation to 1000. They had to create a whole new photo editing software to make even more saturated colors. And that's pretty much the aesthetic that we're going for here. I said before the show, they all look like they're about to play laser tag. Not for me, but I do appreciate the zaniness and silliness that they have been incorporating alongside some of the more traditional looking team outfits. And this is certainly on, the silly side of things. And I appreciate that. It's not my cup of tea, but, it's in there for the people that want to run around with some crazy outfits.
Yeah, it gives me Invader Zim vibes.
Oh, yeah.
And that specific aisle of Hot Topic in like the 2007 period of time. It's like, I'm with you. I like that we're continuing to just get random with some of these team sets. I do always appreciate the themed ones more, we talked about the Western Cowboy one that leaked. Even Aerospace I liked because it, space age, everybody looked like they could be in space with those outfits. So I think, we've gone over the team ones. Sometimes they're hit or miss, but this one, I wouldn't say it's a hit, but I'm not going to say it's a miss either. So
yeah, it would be funny. Like, I don't play with randoms, but if I did like I do in Apex Legends, it would be hilarious to run a mission with someone in one of these outfits because it's just so out there.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. So that's it for that. There is a new free item in the marketplace, which I've noticed they've started doing every week, which is very nice. Even if it's a small little nameplate, it's really cool. This week it is a Guardians of the Galaxy nameplate. Of course, it's the Guardians from the upcoming Square Enix Guardians game, and it is an animated nameplate. So they all pop in from right to left. And it's cool. I love these animated nameplates. I think they've been doing a much better job than just the sparks on the left and right. There's actually movement involved in these animated nameplates. And it's cool that this is a free one.
Yeah, and I really love the key art for that game as well. And I think this is exactly what I wanted when we talked about nameplates in the past, out of something like a MCU movie poster nameplate animation, right? Like this is the exact same thing I was picturing, but it's just the key art for the Guardians game rather than the key art for Black Widow's main poster. So yes, it's within Square Enix, so maybe that's why they can use that exact same art, but it's still Marvel proper. It's the Marvel brand. Potentially maybe we do see a Black Widow nameplate in time for the movie, but this is a really good one. I think I like it a lot.
Sure. And speaking of nameplates, we also have the Cosmic Threat nameplates for some of the heroes: Black Widow, Hulk, Hawkeye. I think actually they might all have them. In the War Table blog, they only list 4, but I think most, if not all, members of the Avengers have new animated nameplates alongside the Cosmic Threat event, I suppose. I believe they're earnable. So I could be wrong.
I think the earnable one is a team nameplate, but the character-specific ones are marketplace transactions. So
gotcha. Okay, thanks for the correction. They are. I do like these. I forgot to message you separately saying that these are actually some good nameplates because they're animated. There's some movement involved in the nameplates themselves. And yeah, it's nice to have like actually like well produced, cool artwork with the animated nameplates. So it's nice.
For sure, yeah. Well, why don't we just get on in to the weeds with this, Jack? What is the centerpiece? What is the crown jewel of the marketplace this week?
Christian, you're eating incredibly well this week.
Oh, yes.
Finally, after what seemed like forever, I think it was about a month in between the Avengers Endgame skin drops. We had like 3 in a row and it was crazy. And then there was a drought of a month. Finally, we have the Captain America Avengers Endgame skin in all of its glory, featuring the reason I bought this 1400 credit skin.
Yes.
The MCU Shield with the thick silver bands. Christian, this is great.
Yeah, it looks wonderful in game. And listen, I like the direction they took with this take on the Avengers, right? I was not one of those people that were like, I just wish it was the Chris Evans, but I do like their new take on it. I like the shield fine. I like the chunky GI Joe looking Cap, fine, but this shield I think is iconic, and I think the scale of it within itself, like the star, like all the framing behind it, the ratio of the sizes, it's just perfect here. The star, the other one is way bigger. We got some really skinny silver on the standard stock one. So, yeah, great looking shield. I haven't bought an MCU skin yet. This was my first one because, we saw this leak. We saw this one leak, and it was the old shield. But we had this conversation. Presumably, the reason it was taking so long was so they could make it the MCU shield. And I think that was the case. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, like I'm showing up for this. More of this, please. Thor with a beard and long hair and the MCU Mjolnir, please.
It's really interesting that Thor is the last one because I think he has the most iconic look from that movie of the Avengers featured in this game. And I can't mess that one up because Hairgate has been a situation for this game already. And we'll talk about like some of the stuff that the devs have been talking about in terms of like swapping hair, if you want, that they're looking into. I feel like Thor needs to be a hit, and him coming last might point to that. I don't know if they've been releasing these skins and seeing the sort of backlash to some of them and being like, ooh, maybe we should take our time. I don't know if that's the reason between the month release or just them wanting to stretch out the skins. Either way, I think Thor has to be a hit. But right now with Cap, dude, I love it. I bought it. This is the second one. I got my Iron Man one, of course, because I'm an Iron Man main. Captain America is a 150 character for me. And for me, this was like a future-proofing purchase because I know, and we'll get into it later, that they mentioned like weapon skins. And if I bought the skin for the shield, which I did, knowing that potentially I could have this shield going forward and swapping it out with other skins, that had me sold. I know that might be a pie in the sky thing. We might never get that, but just having the shield feels right. It looks like the shield I know, looks like the shield everyone knows, and it makes me very happy. So this is a great skin all around.
Absolutely, yeah. I really, really think they nailed it on this one. Very similar to Iron Man. I think Cap, of course, has the benefit of half of his face being hidden. So that's nice. So, yeah, honestly, when you were saying that about Thor, though, I could easily see a world where the Thor skin we do get is technically Infinity War Thor, because the very beginning of Endgame, he's wearing the Infinity War look, and he's got the short hair, so, like, I could see them take that approach here. I will prepare myself for that to be an option, but I'm with you. I think Thor is, like, not King Thor, right, but, like, the really cool Thor at the end of that movie. I think that is the iconic look for him. So that is what my hope is, right? And I'm kind of not expecting to see it next week. But yeah, saving that for last, having the hindsight, seeing the way the devs have talked about modifying hair and stuff like that. We'll get to something Miller said in a little bit, but having hindsight on the community feedback, which maybe wasn't delivered the proper way, but I think people had some valid complaints if they're paying for something and it's not fully there. I think they probably heard that, and I think Thor is the way to prove they heard that for sure. Yeah,
that's a good point. I will say, most, if not all of these, have featured the looks of the characters in the third act of the film, because they all wear like different outfits, whether it's like the Pym particle outfits or what have you. All of the outfits released so far for these characters have been the third act outfits that they wear. Like once they develop the Iron Gauntlet in that film. So I think Thor probably will get the Norse look. But I was thinking about if they totally decide to go Fat Thor and they do big gut exposed sort of look from when he was in his home in Norway, I believe. I don't think they'll go that route, but that would be hilarious if we're expecting his look from the final act of the movie and it's just him like with Cheetos on his fingers and like beer on his gut. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I would absolutely not buy that, but
That would be the biggest troll. Like saving that one for
know,
last.
I know.
That'd be so funny. Honestly, do it. Do it. You won't. Crystal Dynamics.
please don't. I know you won't, and please don't take it as a challenge. Honestly,
That would be amazing. I might buy that. Because it'd
Yeah.
be so hilarious.
yeah. Like I'm open to a big Lebowski Thor eventually. Like we
Yeah.
got MCU skins on the docket for the next few months on this roadmap, so go off. But like,
Sure.
man, Thor skins in general, outside of the hardware hipster Thor that we just got that I missed, yeah, he's been lacking since they did Unworthy. Like when they did Unworthy and they gave him the metal arm and the short hair and like the tattered outfit, very comic accurate. They were like, you know what? That's good for the Thor fans for like 8 months, right? They can live off that. So
Yeah, it's funny you've been playing the characters in live service games that do not get the treatment they deserve. You're
Yep.
playing Thor and Revenant in Apex, who has like categorically bad skins. Like no, usually like characters in Apex have one good gold skin like in the marketplace you could buy whenever. Revenant has zero. They're bad. They're all bad. And he's like one of my like side characters, so even for me, I'm like, ah man. But you're eating well with Revenant soon, and hopefully you'll be eating well with Thor even sooner.
hopefully, yeah. Well, new segment, Jack, because I wanted to prep to make sure in case we missed the War Table blog this week and did not have Fury's report, we had something to discuss about this game. And I think this is warranted to bring up right now.
Okay.
It's time for Romanov's Recon.
Excellent alliteration.
Thank you. So Miller, we all know Miller, right? The game's most notable leaker. I would say pretty spot on so far. I feel like everything Miller has tweeted has come into fruition for this game.
Yeah, I'm pretty
in
sure
some
Miller
form.
data mines, so I that like has to be accurate.
Yes. So Miller has been vocal over the last 24 hours. We're recording this Wednesday, June 24th, about some changes coming to the game. And this was teasing that we'd get an updated roadmap today. That was one of the things Miller brought up. But specifically, Miller had a series of 4 tweets with a handful of teases about future things coming to the game. I didn't note all of them, but I thought would be a few that would be relevant to today's conversation. So, first up, Miller said that the devs at Crystal are considering having altered features to already existing skins, namely like stuff like new hair for MCU Hawkeye, rather than being bald, either maybe using the Matt Fraction Clint inspired hair or maybe a new hairstyle altogether, but that is an option that they are considering, and seeing what they did with Cap's shield, hopefully going off our conversation about Thor, I think that would make sense, and I think a lot of people in the community would be happy about that.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if you could change up stuff like that either manually or if the devs just go in and be like, hey, we kind of missed the mark with the hair for these specific outfits. We're gonna update them. If you prefer, I don't know if they'll give you this choice, but if you prefer this type of hair, you can have this. If not, here's the updated kind. That'd be cool. It's like a small thing in the grand scheme of things, obviously,
Yeah.
which is how we always talk about this game because there aren't big content drops until August. But this would be a nice little change for people to go in and have more agency with their characters.
Yeah, and in line with all this, Miller did say that right now, like actively right now, Crystal is taking a survey amongst the community discussion, saying that they're looking about conversations regarding how much weight people put on specifics of the cosmetics. So he did mention if you ever had a problem with any of the way the cosmetics have been handled in terms of design, hair, accuracy, now is the time to do it. Of course, do it respectfully, do it succinctly. Like, I didn't buy it because of this. If it was like this, I would buy it. So now they're actively searching for that feedback. So take that into consideration.
Totally.
Sorry, I had to close the window. Good old leaf blower started up outside.
Nice.
Another thing we mentioned already in this episode is weapon skins. More weapon skins are coming, so I know you are hyped up about this MCU Shield. Is there any standouts amongst the other characters that you think would be obvious or things you'd love to see? Like, do we get that classic Captain America 1 propaganda shield? You know, the little tri-tip one?
Yeah, the only characters I can think of that it would make sense for them to have weapon skins. Cap, obviously. I would love the broken shield. That'd be cool. And then Thor with Mjolnir. I'm sure there are different variations of the hammer throughout comics. I'm not sure how iconic each depiction is, but I'm sure you can mess with that. Then you have, I think the characters that most notably need them are Hawkeye and Kate Bishop. Hopefully not even paid, just be like, hey, look, you can recolor your arrow tips however you want. Here's like a menu. But still, like, you could have like different bows and stuff like that. But then there are characters that really wouldn't make sense with, like Iron Man. He's going to have different gauntlets that are different from his outfit. That wouldn't necessarily make sense. Maybe Black Widow having new pistols, but even then, like, does that really matter? So some characters I think would be really cool, like Cap and Thor, for example. Other characters like Iron Man, like, probably wouldn't even have them. But still, for the characters that would have them, I think it'd be a great little addition.
Yeah, I think MCU Mjolnir would be a great addition. I'll say this every time we talk about weapon skins. It is highly, highly unlikely, I'll say flat out impossible, for Stormbreaker to be a weapon skin. So just prep that expectation right now. Like, that is a wholly different toolkit in terms of how you would play that game. Like, Thor,
he'd have to be a different character.
Yeah, it would be Kratos at that point. Like,
Yep.
Thor does not play like Kratos. Like, similar feeling with the throwing and retrieving, but still, Stormbreaker would be very different. So that is not going to be a skin. But yeah, interesting that, you know, a lot of positivity came out for the Shield. Last week we saw that the Gilded one, so that was a bit of a tease, and it looks like it's going to be keeping up. So,
Yeah.
two other highlights from Miller's drop, and I recommend, if you don't follow Miller, I recommend following Miller, but one of them, oh sweet baby Jesus, this is wonderful news for us. We've been hoping for this forever. Crystal Dynamics did tease in a dev post, or maybe a dev stream, that a Horde mechanic is featured in some War for Wakanda content. That is going to be expanded upon, apparently, and we are just going to get a straight-up Horde mode. So, hell yes. Would love if it was Marvel Zombies in October, but honestly, give it to me sooner. Horde mode in this game. Are you happy? Like, is this another win? What's up?
Yeah, this, like we've said in the past, this game is a podcast game. It's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, for me, it's quite good. But when I think podcast game, I think like sort of turning your brain off and just enjoying the mindless fun of a video game.
Yes.
And Horde mode to me strikes that for sure. You just jump into an area and just being able to destroy swaths of enemies that come at you sounds awesome. And it's a great way to just sort of jump in and pay attention to other things while also playing the game. That sounds cool. If they want to do more like that's what I imagine, like base level, I'm going to fight as many enemies as I can. That's pretty much it. If they want to do something a little bit more in depth, like a Halo firefight, or maybe like a Call of Duty Zombies, which I don't think they would probably do, that sounds like it would be an incredible get for this game. But I'm imagining it's probably a more basic, hey, just go into this area of Wakanda, for example, and a bunch of swarms are going to start coming at you, and you can quit out whenever you want. That's what I expect. And even still, that's cool.
I haven't done it in a while, but Destiny, of course, Destiny 1 has this great mode that never returned in Destiny 2 called the Prison of Elders, where it was a multi-tiered arena sort of thing that did have a cutoff point, but it was scratching that horde mode itch, right? Where you'd go in, there's a handful of waves end with bosses, and it takes place in this like sort of outlaw land. You're fighting captured versions of some of the enemies in the game. So it's a really cool set dressing thing. I think if we got something like that as well, maybe frame it around the Grandmaster or Sakaar, the arena combat,
Ooh.
would also be very cool. Again, we don't know when this is coming, so if it is soon, you're probably right. It is going to be a Wakanda thing. So
Yeah, if they do like a more basic thing in September around Wakanda, that's great. And like what you said, if they come around the next month in October, the thing of October is Horde mode and maybe Marvel Zombies, like you suggest.
ooh, yes.
Oh boy, bro, that'd be awesome. Some pumpkins. I need some pumpkins. Give me some jack-o'-lanterns. I think that's reasonable startup screen. You got jack-o'-lanterns all over the place, and you jump into Marvel Zombies.
You're gonna get a Iron Man suit that is black with glow in the dark bones skeleton painted all over it. That's what we're getting.
I want a jack-o'-lantern head on Iron Man.
That'd be cool. See, I remember last year when we talked about Halloween stuff. The thing I would love to see is just like a cardboard robot suit. You know, like kids do in Halloween. But
That's a good one.
so much potential. I really do hope that that is what we can expect out of October. So you teased it. We'll get to this in just a quick second, but we are going to be getting more content this year, and we're going to hear about it pretty soon. So let's say, yeah, Marvel Zombies is October. I think it's very likely, according to this last Miller drop, that the raid, the vibranium mining facility raid, is going to be dropping in September, because Miller said that the raid reiterated it is a thing. It's about a mining facility. It's in Wakanda. It's in that environment, but it is not dropping day and date with War for Wakanda in August, which I would say makes sense because Crystal also mentioned that they were going to be buffing power level after War for Wakanda, so you usually want to have a bump in power level when a raid hits for a game, just to give people incentive to play it a bit before they dive back in. So, yeah, I could see a world where this raid is September. But hearing, Jack, that the raid does exist and is actually a priority, considering they haven't officially said the word raid in months, is this reassuring for you? Is this exciting?
It is reassuring. It's exciting. I don't think you need the raid day one because, like what you said, people need to get back into this game because I'm thinking, and I think it's very reasonable to expect that a lot of people are going to return to this game because of Black Panther.
Yes.
And you need to get people back up to speed. And if it takes a few weeks, if it takes a whole month to get the raid out there, that's fine. I don't think you can have a super adaptoid situation for the raid. I think that needs to be very close to your big content drop. You can't have months going up because it will be a Wakandan themed raid, presumably.
Yeah, and
so it needs to be around that.
Yeah, I'll throw this in there too. Like sometimes in Destiny, right? Like you get your big story expansion, and then there's a raid that drops maybe a little bit after the expansion hits, and the raid more often than not. I haven't raided in Destiny, sadly, because I don't have that many friends. But the raid will usually have additional story information. So let's say War for Wakanda, we see a confrontation between T'Challa and Claw. Like that could have impacts or resolution in the raid. So yeah, this is like it's smart to spread it out a little bit, for sure.
Right. And I would say even if this game, or even if the raid comes out in October, I feel like that's the maximum distance that should come out.
Sure.
But I think that'd be a good way to like prolong and extend the War for Wakanda expansion, make it feel like a little bit more in depth and a little bit more beefy. So yeah, it's exciting. I sincerely hope it comes out around that time. I'm sure it will. It sounds like the team is pretty confident that it will come out around that time. And yeah, August, September can't come soon enough.
Hell yeah. And you know what can take its time to come out, apparently?
What's that?
The patrol mode. So let's talk about some updates.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Patrols have been pushed past War for Wakanda. Um, we talked about patrols last week. I'm pretty sure neither of us are really excited about what those could bring. Um, I will say the systems designer they brought on from Marvel Heroes could be a reason why this is getting pushed. So they could have more say and maybe a bit more strong direction on what patrol mode could add to the game, since patrols were in Marvel Heroes and were pretty popular. So, I mean, I could see why people would maybe be disappointed by it, but like, it's not a priority for the game right now. I think the more time they have to make patrol modes, good, the better. So, like, yeah, for seeing what we have coming in July, what's your take on patrols being pushed out further?
I really don't mind patrols being pushed. We said it in previous episodes. Like, it's probably one of the smaller, if not the smallest, update on the roadmap, and the fact that they're just adding a new thing for July, which I think is arguably better, even though it is funny how it's coming out this late. But I think it is better to have the momentum from Cosmic Cube with the new July content rather than Cosmic Cube. Oh, I guess it's just the open world, the wasteland, and then War for Wakanda. I think it's a nice progression from the villain sector to this Omega level threat that you'll introduce very soon, and then War for Wakanda. I think that's a lot better than having a patrol mode that is not really much. It's just like an open world environment right before War for Wakanda. So this is a good little appetizer, I'd say, before War for Wakanda. Yeah, I think honestly you'll get into it very soon, but I think the July on the updated roadmap looks a lot better than the July on the previous roadmap.
Oh, for sure. So why don't we just dive into it? Because there's really not much else to say about patrols. But currently now in July, we are going to be getting a slew of content. Because like you said, they updated the roadmap to move some things around. Multiplayer mega hives are dropping. They will be harder since they are shorter. The Omega level threat version of the Super Adaptoid fight will be dropping. And they decided that as of July, in universe, there's been enough tachyon energy in the air that you can permanently play as duplicate heroes. So, overall, big win.
Yeah, it's a really big one, and the latter part of being able to play as any combination of heroes permanently tells me that pretty much what we thought. They launched that feature in, what was it, April, and tested it out and took the time between then and July to see what were the bugs, what was wrong with this, what could be improved, and now they're putting it in permanently. So kudos to the team for doing that, because we thought it was really bizarre that they introduced that and took it away, because this isn't the type of game where you can do that. You kind of need new content, and when it comes, it needs to stay. Like like Black Widow's Red Room is still there, and I think will just presumably be there until the end of time. That's great, and it's great that they're learning from their DLC and content drops to add new stuff to this, and that is a great feature. I think that will prepare people to just play as whoever they want for the raid that is coming soon, presumably. So that is perfect. That is a great update, even though it's not new content per se. It's a new way of playing the game, and I think it's a way that people have wanted to play this game. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and I think dropping this alongside multiplayer Mega Hives and the Omega level threat Super Adaptoid that you cannot play with AI partners, you need to play with other people, I think is a great move. And like you said, getting it ahead of the raid, very smart as well, because I think this was the conversation we had back in April, right? But being able to play as duplicates, I think will probably help matchmaking significantly, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know what the back end looks like if you're playing as Iron Man and, a lot of people love Iron Man, right? Like, how many times did you miss out on getting in a strike team at all or quickly because you were choosing to play as your main, right? Like, throwing this in there to incentivize matchmaking when you're about to drop a ton of multiplayer content is a very good idea. So, like you said, good momentum here.
Yeah, and I feel like July is a really good preparatory month for the end of year one / start of year two. Like all the stuff that people wanted in this game, specifically with playing as any combination of your heroes and more multiplayer activities, is going to gear up for the end of year one and hopefully the start of year two with good momentum, like what you said. So, yeah, this is really great. In speaking on the Super Adaptoid, it is really silly that the villain sector or the villain from Kate Bishop's expansion in November, December is coming in July of the next year. It's hilarious. But I think we said like a few months ago this would probably drop with other content because it would be so ridiculous if it was just its own standalone thing. And it is. It's kind of like the thing I'm least thinking about, honestly. Just the ability to play as your heroes permanently is great. And the fact that we're getting this too it's a good combination. It's not a huge month in July, but it's a really good update month. And I'm glad for that.
Absolutely. And I can tell you right now, looking at this, you and I are probably going to play the game together more in July than we ever had. Because,
totally.
there's stuff to do together now, right?
Yeah. We, like you mentioned, we have to play together if we want to do the Omega level threat.
Yeah. And multiplayer mega hives, I'd like to get another piece of exotic gear. So,
Sure.
yeah, let's squad up and we can get each other some exotic gear.
Yeah, so. That sounds good.
So, this was a big update to the current roadmap we have, right? And we all know that War for Wakanda is hitting in August. That is the furthest out on the roadmap. Well, in the blog detailing the changes that we just went over for the current roadmap, they also said they are hard at work and planning the future, and they're excited about some things, but specifically within the next month or two, we are getting a new roadmap, presumably covering the beginning of year two, aka the rest of this year, and I'd say, if I wanted to be realistic, the latest I could see a new roadmap go is probably to next March.
Yeah, I was thinking March too. Of course, we got to get the Bucky Steve romance February drop. We need that in there. Honestly, Christian, I've been vacillating between whether we even get content after September or if we get a full year two of content. I really don't know what we get. It sounds like they're completely planning on content being released for this game throughout 2022 and maybe into 2023. So that is incredibly good news. I'm still thinking that like at any second, Square Enix could just pull the plug on this thing and be like, look, we saw the numbers on Black Panther. We're contractually obligated to do Spider-Man at some point, so we'll do that, and that's it. I'm still sort of thinking that that's a possibility. Sure. Black Panther is going to be a huge test for this game in terms of returning players and people getting back into this game or new players coming in. I'm sure testing for free-to-play is probably also on their mind, for Square Enix at least. So I think August is a huge month, and I'm glad that they're at least planning on more content coming out, and it sounds like they're hard at work at making that content. Just not sure if that's a definite, but if they are thinking it's going to happen, that has me very positive.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, things can happen at any time. Things can get canceled whenever, but ever since that meeting for last year's financials back in like March or April, I think, where Square surprisingly said like, no, Avengers did well for us. Like they were like, hey, it made money and we're like happy with it and like we're pleased with the reception and like it made money for us. Ever since they said that, after all those months post launch, I have fully believed we'll at least see 2021 filled out with content and drops. So, like you said, it's awesome to hear that they have plans for things. Paul Tassi was able to interview the team and got a little bit of insight into where their heads are at. And Crystal did say they have ideas for content planned through 2023. So, like you said, Black Panther could be make or break for this game. I think at the very least we will see content through, I'll say, to next March. I think that's an okay bet based off of the way Square has been talking about the game this year. I think now to March is an all right window for a couple new modes, maybe a returning event, and then maybe Spider-Man and one other hero. And I think that will be the bare minimum for what we get. But hearing that they have plans beyond that and they're hopeful about it makes me excited.
Yeah, it's good news, at least from the mindsets of the devs. Obviously, we don't know if that will all come to fruition, but the fact that they're thinking about it and planning on it and presumably actively developing things is awesome. I think Spider-Man is probably not a 2021 thing. Just thinking about the way they're talking about it.
Yeah.
I think Paul Tassi specifically quoted them as saying, "Hell or high water, Spider-Man is coming."
Yeah.
Which, to me, that says, like, it has to happen. We need to do this. But, like, we have other things in motion right now, and those are that sort of takes priority. And the fact that Spider-Man is a PlayStation exclusive, they're probably like, all right, well, only, like, a piece of our audience is getting this. Probably a good chunk, honestly, but yeah, I feel like Wakanda and War for Wakanda and the Raid, those all take priority. Spider-Man, I'm sure, is actively being worked on right now, but that will come when it comes, it sounds like. And I could see that being a spring 2022 thing at this point.
I would put my chips on December because I don't know if that, because the thing is, when they announced that thing, they said 2021. So they had a year on that thing. I don't know how that contract works out, but December, I think, is probably the latest they can do Spider-Man. From just like people being fed up with it, maybe, of like, hey, I bought this game for this, and like Sony probably would like it sooner than later as well. There's a chance, based off of Insomniac's pace, that maybe late next year we get a new Spider-Man game. So like, I doubt they want to have a big Spider-Man drop in this game in March and then in November have a new Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah.
I think December is where I'm betting it because, again, you get that synergy with No Way Home, the way we had the Red Room for Black Widow. So to me, it makes sense. But I guess right now for you, hearing we're getting a new roadmap, let's just say, to be safe, it fills out September, October, November, December, and that's really it for now. Do you have like high hopes for that? Are you expecting it to sort of mirror what we have in the current roadmap? Do you think we get another character drop? Like, what's your expectations for roadmap 2?
I think we're getting big content in August, and if the raid is held off like a month or two, it'll probably be August, September for like the big months, maybe October. I'm expecting like smaller events like Cosmic Cube size or Tachyon Anomaly size. Patrol mode is coming at some point. I don't know if that's this year or next year, but that's somewhat smaller. So like I feel like it will probably plateau after, or I guess go into valleys after War for Wakanda. I think that's like the heavy hitting content. I don't know if we get another character drop. I would say if Spider-Man is not December, that probably is a good month for another character drop. For another like small 1 to 2 hour story DLC with like, I don't know, War Machine or Bucky Barnes, someone people who have been leaked before.
Yeah,
that would
like
make
Bucky.
sense.
I think Bucky, based off of the way Miller's talked about it, would probably be one of the next ones lined up. Like Bucky or She-Hulk, I think, are the safe bets for potentially being next. So,
yeah.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, if this Wakanda is similar to the Wakanda in the MCU, in its attachments to Bucky Barnes, I feel like that would probably make sense. Where you get like a tease of him in the War for Wakanda expansion, and then playable Bucky in probably Wakanda. That would make sense in like later months. So yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, you just made it make sense for me because I was gonna say interesting choices for characters that would be next, considering where we leave off story wise after the recent mission that was added to the game. But you made it make sense. I think that makes a lot of sense for having Bucky with Wakanda for sure.
Sure.
So all that said and done, I think 2021 for this game could be really good, right? Are you feeling that too?
2021 as a whole,
Yeah.
I would say yes. It had a nothing start
Mm-hmm.
pretty much at the beginning of the year until Hawkeye, which I think was in March. So that's pretty much when the year started. It was great to see the roadmap. Some smaller content updates with Tachyon Anomaly and the Black Widow Red Room Takeover, which were like, so to, okay. Some better stuff coming along, which we'll talk about, and kicking or ending it all, at least at the end of the summer with War for Wakanda, and then hopefully some good stuff at the end of the year. I feel like for sure 2021 will be a great year for the game overall, good to great. And I feel like Greg Miller's prediction of Imran Khan being able to say, you know what, Avengers is in an all right state, will probably come true.
I think
I
so
feel
too.
like that'll come true.
Also, uh, I'm owning the scene on Avengers video game TikTok stuff right now. Greg Miller just joined TikTok, so
I did see that.
interesting things, Miller. Two Millers on this show, damn.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I think before we move on from everything with the roadmap, we do have to address the one downside of this week. So PS5 players, I did not know that this did not affect me, but it did prevent me from streaming the game Tuesday night to play the mission because I was scared. But PS5 players hop into this new expansion, right? Streamers for the game, all 15 of us really want to play this game online. And if you are on PS5 and you wanted to stream Tuesday night, tough luck because your IP address is plastered all over that screen and it's not in a place you can just crop out. It is bouncing around like a little DVD player screensaver. It's all over the place. You saw it firsthand, Jack.
That's right. I saw Paul Tassi report on this. I think he was the person that really sort of was the first one, like ringing alarm bells, being like, this is a problem." And
Yeah.
so I wasn't planning on streaming it. I know you were, and you couldn't, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Or like, yeah, you just didn't end up doing it out of abundance of caution. And this is it's a really terrible glitch. Um, just to you don't want to dox yourself because your IP address is linked to your real life you know location, and that's not a good piece of information people should have if you wanted to decide to stream. So that was really bad. I know Paul Tassi in his report that you mentioned earlier was talking with Crystal, and the working like idea is that the QA testers who do like quality assurance for games like this, they always have that on screen apparently, which I didn't know. So they saw that on screen, and that was just normal to them because that's always there, and they didn't mention that because why would they? It's always there for them. And that made it into the final product. Crystal Dynamics is like, oh boy, that's not supposed to be there. Luckily, it did get patched relatively quickly. It was out of the game by the next day,
Hmm.
which I think in the grand scheme of things is pretty quick, but really bad timing to come with a Cosmic Cube. I will say, really great that it was for the Cosmic Cube and not for War for Wakanda. That would be a
Dude, yeah.
red alert. Oh no, people can't stream our biggest content we've ever released. So it was really bad. I'm glad it was for content that isn't the thing to get people back into the game. Although that said, I did play my first time through the villain sector was with my IP address all over the screen, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like once I heard the explanation, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Somebody probably just didn't include it, right? So it's not QA's fault. Absolutely, very clear.
No,
QA, they did what they were supposed to do. And like you said, very like it's a blunder I don't know how that happens, but at least it was done quickly. I hope it doesn't happen again. Like,
Yeah, they said they're being very that like it won't happen again. Like
yeah,
I'm sure that's like a hey, do X, Y, and Z and check the IP addresses, make sure this is not in there. I'm sure that is like high capital letters, like yellow highlight on the whatever Google Doc I'm sure that they're working on.
yeah. Like
Yeah, that's not gonna happen again.
you and I have played games for a long time, and I'm sure both of us have played games where we lost save progress to the point where every time we save now, we save like 3 times. Like, did I save already? Like, just doing it again just to make sure. They are going to check this at least 12 times the night before War for Wakanda drops, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that has to be perfect. It's funny you mentioned that save thing. I infamously lost like a 90% Arkham City save that I was working toward 100%. Crushed my soul. Eventually got it, but had to start over. I get
Yeah.
that.
Well, we did talk adjacently about this Cosmic Cube event, so why don't we get into some stark realities and talk about our thoughts on it. So, overall, Jack, probably like a 30-minute mission, 30-minute villain sector. Uh, Overall, a couple days removed. What do you think of this content drop?
I really liked it. I was going in with the expectation that we were pretty much just getting a villain sector. I wasn't expecting story at all, and I was
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised that it honestly felt like a continuation of Hawkeye's DLC, which it pretty much is. And I'm thinking that maybe it might have served better around the release of that, but still continuing the story in like this smaller update is a really great thing. And the thing that really stuck out to me was the environments where everyone complains about running in the same hallways. Some beautiful new environments. There was the lead up part had like some cosmic energy going around it, which looked great. The underground part looked like I'm forgetting the city in BioShock.
Rapture, I
Or
think.
yeah, exactly, Rapture. Thank you. Or the underwater section from Jedi Fallen Order in
That's what I thought of.
the last part. So it was cool. I was just expecting the villain sector, and we got some small to significant story updates. And I think overall the villain sector itself is probably the best one in the game.
Oh, for sure.
And I was pleasantly surprised with this. What about you?
Yeah, I was, like you said, I wasn't really expecting this much story. I think they said at one point like it would continue where we left off with Hawkeye, but I thought it would just be like Monica has a line before we fight her. But no, we have like a couple cutscenes, which I really enjoyed. I really love this take on the Avengers and seeing them all interact together, and I thought that was sorely missing with the Hawkeye expansion. So seeing them able to have some banter amongst each other here really made me happy. So I did like that a lot, and hopefully we continue that. Maybe the recording process that we speculated for Hawkeye's expansion was like straight in the middle of all this pandemic. So hopefully we're back to a more talkative crew for future content. But yeah, I'm with you. This is the best villain sector in the game. I think it's the most mechanically diverse. We do have a activate a terminal, do a thing puzzle, but I thought it was framed very interestingly when we have to like break the gravity restraints on the cosmic cube and then go through a couple waves of that. I thought that was fun, just because it was changing up the typical stuff you would do in a mega hive, right? Of like, okay, go hack this server, go destroy this generator. Like it was in that league, but it was feeling like a step up because of the presentation. So I did like that.
Yeah, and there are only like so many different things you can do like mechanically in this game that
Yeah.
you can't like really make it too varied at a certain point. But I think this was like a good variation, like what you mentioned. Like, yeah, you're still holding down this spot, or you're still holding square to activate this terminal, but it's like slightly different. That it feels very new. In particular, Christian, when we get to the final part where you're fighting Monica herself and her clones, which is hilarious still. That location, tell me I'm wrong, looks exactly like the final boss fight in Jak 2. With you have the center pit, you have the enemy in the very middle, and you have like this circular room. Obviously, the one in Jak 2 is very dark. This one's like bright and colorful, with like a bunch of like pillars and stuff. It's the exact same, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I did not put that together, but you're completely correct. um, and yeah, why don't we talk about that room, right? Because it's an
Yeah.
interesting room. I think mechanically, again, it is the most interesting. Is it the most interesting boss fight in the game so far?
It has to be, right? Because Maestro and Abomination to me are exactly the same.
Yes.
Um, Different enough, but not different enough. I'll say different, but not different enough.
Yeah.
And then we have Taskmaster, who is just not that interesting. So I feel like this by default is the most interesting because it is so different.
Yeah. So basically, the process. Monica has waves. She has an immunity phase. There are pillars in the room that are your saving grace. You basically have to make sure she's KO'd before all those pillars crumble, or else you wipe. So it was a level of difficulty that I wasn't expecting either because I did run it solo. I ran it with Hawkeye. It took me like 4 attempts because he's not a level 150. He's like 140 something, I think. And it took me a couple stabs before I was able to do it. And I really liked that because it was pushing back against me and it was making me think, okay, how do I maximize the time they give me to actually take her out? And after like 4 or so attempts, I was able to figure out a rotation of like, okay, I'll trigger my L1R1 Hunter's Arrow when there's like one clone left. So that way, when her bubble's down, the Hunter's Arrow constantly just stabbing her. Because the time it took me to like draw an arrow, just doing that by itself, even if it was a pulsar, I did not have enough time to get significant damage in on her. So like, I really did like the learning process here, and I thought it was like we've been saying, well developed, interesting, mechanically different from the other ones. And for me, it's the new standard for villain sectors or content drops of this level in the future.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I appreciated her. Like she had mini bosses too. It wasn't just her. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, there's this different element. There's the wind Monica, or there's the electrical Monica, which sounds hilarious, and it is. But that's cool. It's like it's something new that we haven't got with villain sectors. I will say I think my Iron Man is just completely OP because I rolled in, and whenever her shield would go down, you would have like 10 seconds before I later found out she would destroy one of the pillars, and you have to defeat her, like what you said, before all
Yes.
pillars are done. Her shield would drop. I would have that 10-second time frame, and I would shoot like a few missiles at her, and she would be damaged enough where she would pull up her shield. So the first time I ran through it, none of the pillars dropped. And then I read Paul
Damn.
Tassie's review of this, and you spoke to me and were like, "Oh, you have any tips on like how to defeat her before all the pillars dropped?" And I was like, I didn't even know the pillars could drop. So I ran through it a second time, and I let her like her thing expire so she could destroy the pillars just to see what that was like. But yeah, I feel like I would recommend if someone's listening, they haven't played it yet, have a good ranged character because I don't know how you could do this as like a melee Captain America.
Yeah.
Or Thor, or excuse me, Hulk. No way you could do this as Hulk.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm curious to see how people fare in the future. I did see somebody on the subreddit be like, for those that don't believe you can one-shot Monica, and they had a Hulk, and that was the thumbnail. I didn't watch it, but yeah, I know Crystal has said balancing and making sure we're not too powerful for a lot of these bosses, and for my first attempt playing Hawkeye, I thought it made sense because, like you said, this seemed like a conclusion of Hawkeye's story. He was sort of leading the charge in this story, and I think it's basically it serves as a better ending for Future Imperfect than Future Imperfect was. You know, like
Yeah.
so. I'm glad I played through it as Hawkeye. I think it's a very great boss fight. I hope we get more of this quality in the future, and I will absolutely run it again as Thor and try to finish this before Immigrant Song ends.
Oh yeah, that's a really good call.
Yeah.
you mentioned that this served as a really good end. I feel like this probably should have come out in like, if Hawkeye was March, this should have been the April drop, but that was
Yeah.
Tachyon Anomaly. And I see where the gears in their heads were probably turning, where they probably wanted this in April. That would be a really good 2-month situation. But Tachyon Anomaly was like the test bed of having this content out before Black Panther. So they're like, all right, that has to be up front. And then May, Black Widow was supposed to come out, so that had to be there. And then they were like, all right, let's just throw this in June. So I see where, if that was their logic, I totally get that. This does serve as a better like post Hawkeye situation, but this being a few months out feels a little strange. But not as strange as the Super Adaptoid situation, but still, this is really good stuff. I was ready to come into this podcast being like, it was fine, but my expectations were set very low and they exceeded them. So yeah, this is good stuff.
Hell yeah. A question for you then, because the way the story wraps up here, we do see sort of a reconvening in, well, actually, I forget how the actual story ends, but there is a bonus cutscene if you go to the anthill, which I don't think they direct you to do this.
I think they do.
Okay.
I think they do. Because I finished it and I was like, they were telling me to go to the anthill, which I never do. So that's why I went there.
Sure. Okay. Because I saw somebody tweet out, be like, hey, make sure you go to the anthill after you do the fight. So I thought maybe they just didn't convey it well. So I knew I had to go there already, but yeah, good to hear. You go to the anthill, you're talking to Hank. He received the Cosmic Cube to store it at the anthill. Cap is saying, like, this is a huge win for the Resistance. And they're all talking, right? Clint is saying, like, old man me sacrificed myself to stop Monica, and she was our best hope as it stands to stop the Kree invasion, but we see how that fails in Future Imperfect, so we need a new plan. What you expect. It's, again, teasing this Kree invasion. I don't know how far away it is from where we are. I don't know if anybody has an answer for that, but the Kree invasion is still the looming threat, and it's just Fury's idea of going to Monica and having that sort of relationship work to prevent the invasion failed. And that's why we did all this stuff with the Wastelands and Clint and Kate recently. So the end game presumably is still this Kree invasion. Now, the Cosmic Cube, I have no idea if this is an Infinity Stone or what, but it is in possession of Hank Pym. Now, the end of this is very interesting because we see Roy, the
Our boy
robot.
Roy.
Yes.
Roy's our boy.
Roy is also, I think, in the first cutscene of the story for this villain sector as well.
That's
on the
right.
Helicarrier.
Yeah, he was in the debriefing.
When I saw that, I was like, interesting. Very interesting. He goes into the vault that the Cosmic Cube is being stored in. I believe he brings it there for Hank, and he's locking it up. And then, after it closes, he pops it open again, and then looks at it real close, very interestingly. He's like, this cube is very cube-like. Jack, this is absolutely setting up the Age of Roytron, right?
Yeah, of course, dude. Of
Fuck
course.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't expect that. That's the surprising thing about this content drop, where I was just expecting like a dumb fight with Monica that wasn't gonna be good, and that was good. And then also here's some breadcrumbs to sort of keep the game going, and that was so good. Like this isn't, in the grand scheme of things, separating from Marvel's Avengers and just talking about like industry level like content drops for games. This is like on the smaller side of things, but still, I feel like this is a really like good small update to keep the game and keep the momentum going, specifically the story. And man, it's like, I feel like this game with that in particular learned from the MCU in a way, like have your post credits always be teasing, and they did that with this, and that's a great tease because boy howdy, that's going to be cool. Just don't fight a bunch of robots again, though. 'Cause
Sure,
they're aware
yeah.
of that. I'm sure they're like, oh man, how do we do this without upsetting people? But even still, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so we could definitely do an entire episode dedicated to speculating with this, right? But I was I was freaking out. I was so happy when I saw that on stream. I was like ecstatic because you're right. They're teasing it. I think again, that's evidence that this game at least has a plan to be continuing and having a future, which makes me very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Ultron, I think, is such a cool villain, and the MCU, they did a take on it, Um, but I think Ultron in this game could be way better, way cooler, maybe get more in line with the origin comic of Age of Ultron, because, Hank Pym presumably is responsible for it. But yeah, dude, this is such a great, great tease. And Miller did say that I wanted to save this for here. Ultron is not dropping with War for Wakanda, but Ultron was in his tweet thread. So, like, I think it's clear we're all on the same page. As soon as we saw Roy in the campaign catch Kamala, we were all like, oh, that's Ultron, right? That guy's going to be Ultron.
Yeah. And
so,
Ultron to me sounds like, I mean, you say Age of Ultron, that sounds like it could be the possibility of a War for Wakanda expansion.
exactly.
So that's a big thing. I'm not expecting an Ultron situation until year 2. Like,
Me too.
And even if that's a thing, we obviously don't know that. But I expect that to be an expansion. And like what you said, we could go on forever about this. I could see Ms. Marvel showing up maybe. That has to happen at some point. But the implications of this are great. And I didn't expect to be talking about this with the Cosmic Cube
Hell
event.
yeah.
My expectations were like an all-time low after Black Widow's update, which was like, and the Tekken Anomaly, which is even more So this is good stuff.
And we can move on in just 1 second. I just have to, like, the story is literally there right now, right? Like, Hank Pym physically cannot be Ant-Man anymore, right?
No.
Like, he just cannot. They have no plan to stop the Korean invasion right now. Hank Pym is in possession of this cube. He has Roy, who is a smart AI. I think he upgrades the AI with the cube to act as a system of defense to stop the Korean invasion. Obviously, things go haywire, and that tees up the Age of Ultron, right? And then maybe when we get that equivalent War for Wakanda drop, story-wise, we have maybe a year or two of Ultron looming the way Monica has, and then for the big conclusion with, again, the War for Wakanda equivalent, you drop Vision, because Vision comes into play late in the Age of Ultron story. So it makes too much sense, Jack. It writes itself. I hope this is year 2, and I hope we get this, because it could be hype as hell.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. It just truly sounds great. Real quick before we get off the Cosmic Cube situation, I told you last week that I got, or maybe I didn't, I got the Hawkeye, Hawaii shirt, old man Hawkeye outfit for sale. Maybe I did talk about that last week. I had that on, obviously, for this whole villain sector. So, like, in the debriefing, it was old man Hawkeye talking as young Hawkeye, and I was like, that's weird. And then at the very end, 2 old man Hawkeyes, one in a much more casual outfit, were fighting Monica, and then you get the very last, like, stinger of young Hawkeye, like, going back to the helicarrier and picking up old man Hawkeye's, round black glasses, but it was old man Hawkeye in the Hawaiian shirt picking up those glasses. And I was like, this feels wrong, and this is amazing. I probably shouldn't have been wearing this outfit, but it was hilarious. It was great.
That is fantastic. That is a wonderful addition. I'm glad you can do that in this game.
Yeah, there's some nonsense you can get up to. Man, I want to see some gameplay of people wearing the the weird new team outfits, the neon outfits.
Dude. Yeah. Yes. Oh, it's so good, so good. So, I think, believe it or not, Jack, I think that's everything about Marvel's Avengers this week.
I think it is. I think that's there's so much stuff, and we might have missed like a few things, but that's the big stuff that you need to know.
Yes. So look forward to the game not being dead. You know, we got a future. Hell yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, two things I want to throw out there before we get to the Loki conversation. This is very brief, but I did see. This is just a fun little thing that made me laugh. The Pope blessed a Spider-Man. Thoughts?
I mean, like, this is amazing. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. I believe the Pope, or at least the Vatican, is in charge of the Catholic canon, which is where the nerds get the term canon. So in my mind,
You thought the Star Wars fandom was rough.
So in my mind, the Pope just integrated Spider-Man into the Catholic canon. That's great news. Of course, I could say this after being indoctrinated as a Catholic for my entire life. So this is good stuff. You had a great Photoshop. Which would you like to describe that?
Sure, I'll throw it up on the video version of the podcast right now. But you know, there's that meme, I believe, of Pope Francis blessing the Eucharist in the Vatican or whatever.
Sure.
I wiped out I made a negative space for the Eucharist and then just put it on top of a nicely resized version of Tobey Maguire getting on the wall for the first time. And he's like, woo! In Spider-Man 1. So, very happy about that one.
It's good stuff.
Thank you.
I know, like, a lot of people have cropped that with, like, discs, because it's, like, perfect size for, like, a video game disc or something like that, so all around good stuff. Really just hilarious. Like, the real life image of the Pope, like, meeting Spider-Man is amazing. It's like, surely the Pope is familiar with Spider-Man, because who isn't? And he looked very delighted to see this individual.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that the Pope is a Spider-Man fan. In my headcanon is that the Catholic canon now includes Spider-Man, surely as like a lesser prophet post New Testament. So that's great.
Well, speaking of Spider-Man becoming canon, I'm sure you saw this theory recently. You sent this to me, actually. But now that we're seeing the business of Loki, whatever way they're framing the multiverse, right? The reason for having Loki and Lady Loki, which we'll talk about the episode in a minute, but are the fact that they're variants of the prime sacred timeline version of said character. So people are now speculating that if variance is the true way we're approaching the multiverse, that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, their Peter Parker, are just variants of Tom Holland Peter Parker.
Yeah. I believe David Thompson over the Direct had a theory about this, and that's sort of like, I don't know if that's where this stemmed or sort of just going on with some popular speculation, but it's a really good theory. I know there's like a lot of out there theories about the MCU that, you know, don't turn out to be true, but it seems, and I really hope this is the case, that Loki is setting up the multiverse, and using the language from Loki to describe events and people in the MCU going forward sounds like it makes sense. And we have Lady Loki right now, which we'll get into, and Loki's already, you know, briefly touched on like the different appearances in episode 2 of him as like a blue frost giant or like a big hulking creature or whatever. It makes so much sense that that's how they describe the multiverse, and that's how they would describe the potential appearance of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. It's really funny because they're all just white Spider-Men, white spider dudes, and like the Loki variants have been all pretty different looking. But I guess in the vast multiverse of things, yeah, sure, you can all pretty much look the same. So that's cool. I think that's a really good theory, and would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think it would explain Ralph Boner as well, right? Where that technically is a variant, let's say, of Sacred Timeline, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Quicksilver, right? Like, that would make sense why for us it's a familiar actor, but it's very much not the Fox universe X-Men character, right? Like, it is a variant being played by a character we all know, or sorry, an actor we all know, returning to play a character, but is canonically not that universe. So, like, the way I'm taking this theory, tell me if I'm off base here, but would this mean that Tobey Maguire, let's say the variant Tobey that shows up in No Way Home, isn't the same Tobey that we saw in Spider-Man 1, 2, 3? It's just, hey, it's this character being played again by this actor, and it's stemming from the prime Sacred Timeline Tom Holland. It's just a familiar version of the character. It's not that exact version of the character.
That's a possibility. I'm thinking they would just go the route of, in terms of making it make sense for the audience, like, hey, this character is from the Sam Raimi verse. Because I was really confused until, like, maybe today about Loki and how they deal with the multiverse. Mm-hmm. So, like, let's say, like, the timekeepers are, like, they're unraveling the multiverse and making it make sense. So, and they describe that time doesn't work the same way as it does, like, on Earth, for example. Everything is just happening at the same time, and they're picking and choosing, like, the sacred timeline. So, like, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, their timelines are just happening right now, and once they get to it, they will decide, like, which is the sacred timeline, and obviously it's Tom Holland's. So those, like, branches haven't been clipped yet, is the way I'm thinking that, and they get integrated into the MCU somehow. So that's how I'm thinking about it. I think it'll probably be, if they're in there, it will probably be those characters that we know with the same timeline, in the fact that Alfred Molina even said, which just spoiled the movie, that don't skip ahead for like 10 seconds, that Alfred Molina's character is being plucked from the Hudson River like immediately after he jumped in. So it seems like they are continuing that story.
Mm-hmm. So, interesting stuff. I thought that's a fun theory and puts perspective on things. I will say, last week I think you and I talked about this, that, like, I truly don't believe the timekeepers exist, and I think it's all just a front, and the TVA is just some agenda thing.
Sure.
So who's to say that variants are even really what this all is, right? So, yeah, interesting stuff. I think it's a fun theory, and if this is truly what we're going with moving forward, it would make sense that this is the explanation behind it, for sure.
Yeah, so definitely.
Cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, let's get into Loki, episode 3. This is... I forget the name of the episode, but...
named after the planet they're on.
There you go. So, I guess, spoiler-free impressions, Jack, of course, as we always do. What do you think of the episode? As detailed as you want to be, overall thoughts?
Sure. So, overall, I think it's another really solid episode. That, I think, in particular, like... it takes its time detailing character motivations, specifically where we left off from episode 2, and taking its time to detail new characters, and also get into the mind of Loki itself. And I think it really does. It does it in a really interesting way. And yeah, this is a really great episode. I think episode 2 is probably still my favorite, and then this is probably right behind it. There's some great dialogue in this, some great reveals too. Yeah, overall, solid episode. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, like, I've seen a lot of people say filler episode. I've seen a surprising number of takes, Jack, saying that Loki as a show sucks and it's the least popular, or they're the least favorite of some individuals. And I was like, really? Like, I think so far it's the strongest. Like, I think they've been very consistent with this show, and they have a focus, and they've been working towards that focus. And I think this episode is another stepping stone of getting to that point. So I was surprised to see some discourse around the show as a whole this week, but mainly this episode. Because, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I love characters more than anything when I'm watching something like this in the MCU. So, like, getting to see Loki essentially talk with himself for a full episode and sort of peel back the layers of his motivation, her motivation, finding that out through just talking to the same person. Like, I thought it was very creative. I was very entertained, and the backdrop of just a full blown apocalypse was really great because I think similar to movies that end with an apocalyptic event, you get a lot of raw character stuff there, and I think because of the setting, we were able to get that this episode. So I really loved it personally.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm with you. I really don't get the filler argument. Like I tweeted earlier that if people are saying this episode is filler, then they clearly haven't seen The Great Divide and Avatar: The Last Airbender, which for those that don't know is like the worst example of filler in an otherwise great show. They even like break the fourth wall and reference how bad that episode was like later in the series.
That's good.
So I don't think any episode so far of the Disney Plus shows have been filler. Like filler to me is the Clone Wars, in certain episodes, or the Bad Batch recently. Well, not recently, but like, episode, I don't know, 3 of the Bad Batch. That's filler, where like literally means we have, I don't know, 20 episodes, and like maybe 3/4 to a half will be like story based episodes, and the other bit will be episodes to pad out the show for those weeks. This is not filler. This needs to happen. I'm equating this episode to the part in Monsters Inc. when Sully and Mike get sent to the Himalayas, where like sure they're not on the main path of what they're doing, but this needs to happen for character growth and to set things along that way. So it's just so silly to me when people say it's filler because they don't want to hear people talk. And it's just blatantly clear that they just want to see people beat stuff up. And I know that's the main draw, but there's a heart to the MCU, and this is where that is.
Yeah. You nailed that comparison because it's literally the exact same thing. Like, very harsh environment, 2 people that should be getting along, bickering the whole time. Like, you nailed it. Very good job.
Thanks.
But yeah, why don't we get into a little more spoiler territory, right? Because I think the thing that surprised me, because we're halfway through the show now, the other factor of what I said was like people saying Loki feels all over the place or feels very messy, and like am I insane? Like I really think this is the most focused the show has been so far in terms of like having a clear reason to do a thing. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think is also very focused, but even then there were some episodes that were like, hey, we wanted to make an action scene episode. Like here, every episode I think has been so far characterizing Loki to make him a main character, and then this episode is exploring him as a main character. So for me it worked, and the whole time we are progressing the multiverse stuff. So yeah, it feels important and it feels focused to me. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm totally with you. This has the potential to be my favorite Disney Plus show. Because WandaVision is right now, and even still, like throughout WandaVision's release, week by week, there'd be some like dips for me. But still, like by the end, I was like, overall, that experience was incredible. So far, I haven't experienced a dip with Loki, and we're halfway through. I'm fully expecting the last episode to be bad based on the previous last episodes of the other shows. I hope that's not the case, but that's my expectations right now. But yeah, I 100% agree with you that this feels more focused. And I feel like people might not like this because of the lack of action, but to me, that's its strong suit. It's taking its time to delve into these characters. It's more a dialogue-based show, which I appreciate. I would love to get to a point where we don't see a single punch thrown in an MCU project. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but this is like probably the closest we'll get to that so far.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Loki, like he's definitely had his fair share of action scenes, right? But like Loki, infamously in his character, is always about like avoiding actual physical combat, right? Like he literally fakes people out so he doesn't have to fight them. He talks people out of scenarios. He manipulates them. So like less action is not a problem here by any stretch, right? Like I'm with you. I really do enjoy that. So speaking of like character growth, I think the big takeaway that the internet blew up around is that canonically Loki, well, we knew this in the comics, but like Loki is bi as well as being gender fluid. That was established in the, I think, credits for episode 1 when we saw his report, or maybe that was in the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like Marvel has been, the MCU in particular, has been getting better at representation in the MCU. Obviously, you look at Phase 1 and compared to where we are now, is notably better. It was really silly in 2019 for Disney to have, they were like, oh yeah, we have our first openly LGBTQ characters in the MCU and Star Wars. And it was Joe Russo as a nameless character saying he was gay in a like talk with Captain America, which is like, okay, of course you're going to have the gay character as like the relegated side character with no name, which is probably more offensive than not including a character. Or in maybe even worse in the case of, or maybe exactly the same in Rise of Skywalker, having a character that I don't know the name of. She has a few lines of dialogue, kiss someone literally in the background of a shot, saying like, hey, we have a lesbian, but you know, it's not a main character. It is good. It's very good that they're acknowledging sexuality in the show in a main character. And that's very important. So, you know, I don't want to like congratulate Marvel all that much because clearly they have like a lot of work to do in terms of like increasing and improving their representation of people, but they have been doing that in the past few years, and this is a better example of that. So it is good to have that in this show.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I saw a lot of celebration the other day from like that community really being happy about this. So it's good. It's something that is in the comics. It's something they probably should have done a long time ago, but at least now, like it's always been that way. You know, he just said it now. So there you go.
Yeah. And specifically, I think, was it Kate, forgetting the last name, Herron?
Heron, yes.
She, who is the writer for the show? Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Writer or, you know, creative, one of the creatives of the show was like worked to include that into the show. So good on her. That's great. Seems like it's coming from like the writing perspective rather than like, you know, the suits up top. So really good on her to include that in the show.
Yep. Plus, I was watching an interview with Tom Hiddleston, and he was commenting on it. And Tom Hiddleston, I did not know this about him. He is incredibly passionate about Marvel as a whole. Like, he's into it. Like, he watches everybody's shows. Like, he's very on top of everything Marvel Studios has been doing. And he knows a lot about Loki. Apparently, he gave like a 6-hour dissertation at one point for something for Marvel Studios about Loki's character and why he uses daggers and why he likes that. Like, he's in deep on Loki. So he was specifically talking about this reveal, and he said that it was something that he wanted to be included for a while, and he was glad that the show was where it happened because it was the spotlight. It's more than just like a throwaway line in something like a Thor movie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I feel like this show taking its time to get into the lives of these characters is its strong suit, and that's an example where like the show took the time to do that, and it was really great that that came up. It's really funny that you mentioned that he's so into it, because I don't know why, but I would have expected Tom Hiddleston to be like, all right, another paycheck. This is a
Sure.
But it's always obviously good to hear that the people playing these characters are as into it as we are watching them. So that's great news. And this just seems like a knockout of the park for Loki overall. So that's good stuff.
Hell yeah. In terms of what we learn about the rest of what's going on with Lady Loki, or Sylvie, I believe is her name.
Yeah, who I believe that is Enchantress's name. We talked about that last week. That's her first name.
Okay.
And I was like, they're right. Kind of, maybe.
Do you think it really is Enchantress, though, or do you think it is a previous version of Loki? Because I think it could just be maybe a Mandarin scenario where it's like all of the signs point to being like, hey, maybe this isn't who we say it is, but it's her. Like it is Loki.
So, yeah, it's definitely Loki. And I think it'll be like a Wanda situation with the Scarlet Witch, where she will just adopt that name later on if she wants to be the Enchantress. But it is, for sure, in my mind, she's Loki. Lady Loki.
That's what I think too. I think she's absolutely Loki. And, this is even a possibility. We know Suicide Squad had an Enchantress who used green magic. Maybe they don't want to mix any messages, and they're like, you know what? No. This is Loki. We're never gonna adapt Enchantress, so we just made her this character. Like Marvel Studios has done that in the past. I know, like Bucky is like 20% Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes from the comics, and like 80% of his background with Steve is based off a different character. So like they're no strangers to doing this for the adaptations. So I believe it is Lady Loki.
Yeah, sure. I'm with you.
In terms of everything else, though, we don't get a ton of other insight into the grand scheme this episode, aside from maybe the drop that everybody who worked for the TVA are variants, which, again, I felt was feeding into where I'm standing on the TVA of, like, whoever is the representative, I forget her name, the justice, let's say, for the timekeepers, is lying. I really don't think the timekeepers exist, especially now.
Yeah. Ramona, I believe her name is. Or, like, that's, like, her real name, and then she has an official name. I forget what that is. But, yeah, this is almost like a confirmation that the TVA isn't all quite what it is cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And it's caused a lot of people to think about what the variants could be of the people we know. Like, Greg Miller was talking about, is Owen Wilson a variant of Howard Stark, maybe? He has a similar vibe going on in terms of appearance. What are the variants of the characters that we know? Like, if they are variants, I'm sure some of them are probably people that we know. And we know that variants can look radically different than what other representations of characters look like. So that'd be cool. If there are people we know, that'd be interesting.
Do you think there's a chance that Mobius is like a variant of Odin?
Ooh, I like that theory.
Because he's taken up a fatherly sort of guiding role for Loki in a way.
He sees something in him.
Yeah, the way Odin sort of saw something in that frost giant child, and he's like, "Oh, you could have united our kingdoms," but then things happened.
That's it. You just got it. That's it.
Well, let me tell you, last night at midnight. I had this idea, so I did a TikTok, and this is a real idea, right? The one I'm saying right now, the one I posted, that too many people saw was that. Mobius is actually a variant of Jedediah Smith from Night at the Museum.
That's
Disney owns that IP.
Yeah, that'd be great. That needs to be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where are you at with the overall grand scheme TVA timekeepers stuff right now after this episode? Because we see the whole purpose of this is they want to try and defy the timekeepers. They want to rewrite the timeline and get this ship out of there, but it doesn't work, and we leave off on a pretty bad note. So where are you looking into the final few episodes with the timekeepers and where we leave off?
So something is definitely up with the timekeepers, whether they actually exist or what people think of them. I think they're supposed to be represented as like benevolent gods. But surely with this new information that, if Lady Loki can be believed, that everyone's a variant in the TVA, which I think that's probably true. I think the timekeepers are like oppressors. And I'm sure we'll find that out if they actually meet them, if they exist, or if Ravonna just so happens to be one of the timekeepers and has like maybe altered her appearance to make her look like a member of the TVA rather than an actual odd-looking god that controls the time. It controls time in the universe. So, I'm sure Ravonna knows what's up with what's going on with the Timekeepers. I don't know if she's potentially one of them, or she's obviously like lying for them. So I just love how the show is like it has a mystery involved with it. Even still, we know the variant was Lady Loki, and now we still have the mystery of the Timekeepers. And I always love like a carrot in front of the horse situation in TV shows, and this is one of those, and it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure you've seen like all the Kang the Conqueror theories about the Timekeepers, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that could be a potential outcome of it all in the end, considering Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania is probably going to be dealing with Kang. Fantastic Four will absolutely be dealing with Kang. Kang the Conqueror is cast, I believe. I don't know if it was official, but Jonathan Majors is playing him.
That's right, yeah.
So, yeah, I could see that be where we end up, because clearly we're building to something with Loki, and like you said, I don't think the final episode's going to wrap it all up nicely in a bow. So, it's definitely probably going to be a character moment for the end of the season, and then story lore wise it's going to be all chaos. So
yeah, the thing that gets me with the King the Conqueror theory that makes sense to me is the fact that time works differently in the TVA in the similar way that time works differently in the quantum realm. They specifically make a point to describe that in Avengers Endgame, and in like any of the Ant-Man movies for that matter. And they make a point to talk about the TVA's time working differently in Loki. So that connects in my mind, and I know the representations of the Timekeepers, one of them at least looks like Kang, as far as I'm aware. I'm not familiar with the character in the comics, but that's what the people have been saying online. So that'd be cool. That'd be a nice little like post-credit pan out from the quantum realm, and it's like Ant-Man's eating like a sub or something. That'd be cool.
Would love that. Well, I think that is sort of all the takeaways from this episode of Loki in terms of talking points, right? Like, obviously it was really great to develop his character and see more of his layers come out, and like the reference to Thor with the smash of the drink was great. There was a ton of fun stuff in this episode for sure. But any final thoughts on episode 3 of Loki before we head out, or any wild predictions for episode 4?
I'll say I appreciated the long take that they did in this episode. It didn't really it didn't wow me in the same way that like something from like Children of Men did, or like even in games like God of War or like Metal Gear do, in a lot of ways. But I do appreciate the editing that goes involved in that, because it is multiple takes that just looks like it was shot at once simultaneously. And that's impressive in and of itself. So that was cool. It was a nice little thing. Like, you don't notice it until like you're like a minute in, and it's like, oh, I don't think we've cut at all. So that's always cool to when that shows up. I know, like, it might be done to death, but I'm always impressed with the editing or the actual like filming of that. So it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think every week I've been impressed with the show in at least some form, so hoping that continues into the next couple of weeks. So
totally.
Well, until next episode, Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at FascinatedJack. Dude, let me tell you what, I finished Metal Gear Solid 5. I got the Mission 31 like credits, and then I got like the actual end game credits. Took me like 50 hours, Christian. So I don't know when the long play club for Metal Gear Solid 5 is coming out, because I'm sure it will take a lot of people a lot of time to finish that. Yeah. But let me tell you what, it's gonna be a great episode. So if you want to catch up on our long play of Metal Gear Solid of the series so far, you could find that on youtube.com/joyclicks. And it's been a fun ride so far. Looking forward to the rest. What about you, Christian?
Hell yeah. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at chun2d2, as well as here, youtube.com/joyclicks, like Jack said, for Long Play Club, Excelsior, Jedi Knights Gamescast, all in their designated playlists. Or if you want the audio version of the show, you can check it out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just look up Excelsior or Avengers Game or podcast for Marvel, I don't know, Joyclicks. You'll find it. If you can rate and review on your given platform, it would be appreciated because it does help the show a ton and does not take much from you. And if you want to help us out further, you can go to patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1, $2, and $5 tiers. And at the $5 tier, you get producer credit on this show and every show we do, like Chris Sakis, Aaron Easton, and Charles Applin. So thank you very much. And that does it for a great week in Marvel. We will be back next week with more, hopefully good news about Avengers. Hopefully we get to see that Thor. But at the very least, a good episode of Loki. I hope. But until then, Excelsior.
Excelsior.